So I'm really excited today to share with you a video that I shot over 18 months ago. So for various reasons I wasn't able to put the video up publicly, but today here it is, and it covers a road trip we went on with the Electric Vehicle Association Queensland branch and also the Queensland branch of the Tesla Owners Club, where we travelled as a group from Brisbane to Warwick on the Darling Downs in Queensland to have a look at the University of Queensland's solar farm. Now this was a great day. There's over 205,000 solar panels on this 154 hectare site. So it really is quite a big farm. There's 600 sheep that graze underneath the solar panels as well. So there's solar income and there's also adjustment income from the livestock. Now the farm officially opened in July 2020. We went down in around November 2021, so a little after it was officially opened. Now the video is quite long, but it is really worth having a look at because there's a lot in there. We cover the consumption stats going down in the first generation MG ZS EV into quite a heavy westerly headwind, so that used up some more range. At the end of the video we cover the consumption going home, which was significantly less than going down. There's also a time-lapse photograph or video from UQ which shows the construction, which is really interesting to watch, and also a fantastic presentation from the site manager down there, Don Drain. So he goes through the construction, the partners involved, the outputs, inverters, all that sort of stuff. So really worth watching. So look, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please give it the thumbs up, share it with your friends. And if you'd like to flick us a couple of dollars, really appreciate that. That can be via a PayPal donation, or you can sign up with a YouTube membership, a Ko-fi membership, or also via Patreon. And all those links are in the show notes, and we'll also have some notes on that at the end of the video. So enough from me. Here it is, the University of Queensland solar farm from our trip down with the Tesla Owners Club and the Australian Electric Vehicle Association. Enjoy. We're about to take a family road trip in the MG ZS EV from Brisbane to Warwick to check out how one of Australia's top universities generates 100% renewable energy for all their campuses. Stay with us. Welcome to Electric Car Australia, the YouTube channel for those wanting to know a little bit more about electric cars here in Australia or sustainable living technologies. Well, we're in for a real treat today. We're going to take a road trip from Brisbane down to Warwick, a trip of approximately 160 k's, and we'll be travelling with fellow Australian Electric Vehicle Association members and also the Tesla Owners Club of Australia. So we're heading down to the UQ Warwick Solar Farm. Now that's a massive 64 megawatt solar facility, and it generates approximately 154 megawatt hours of electricity every year from the sun. So fantastic, and it also, by doing that, reduces the grid emissions by about 125,000 tonnes a year. So that's the sort of stuff that we really need to see to be getting our emissions down. Now the project was purchased by UQ in 2018 as a ready to build project. So basically all the plans and stuff were ready to go and had already been developed. Construction started in Feb 2019 and it was officially opened in July 2020. And as we mentioned at the start there, it produces 100% of University of Queensland's electricity needs across their three campuses of Hurston, St Lucia and Gatton. So that's a fantastic effort. Hats off to UQ, and we're going to take you guys behind the scenes today and check it out. So look, it's just about 6 a.m. The kids are just waking up. It's a little cool here today and we have an absolutely filthy car, so I'm going to give it a quick wash before we hit the road and we'll check back in later. So stay with us and enjoy the movie. Well, here we are. We've had a great trip down to the UQ Solar Farm from Brisbane. It's taken us about 1 hour and 50 minutes. We did stop for a quick cup of coffee and a toilet break, so that added a little bit of time. But we just wanted to quickly show you guys the consumption stats. So we do this trip quite often going through to Tenterfield, although with COVID we haven't done that much lately. But we normally use about 18 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres. And interestingly today we used 21.4 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres. So that's the highest consumption we've ever had. And the primary reason for that is there's a very strong westerly headwind. We had dry roads and there was no roadworks, there wasn't much traffic. So the main reason for about an extra 3 to 3.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres of consumption was that strong wind. So just something to be aware of with EVs. It's more noticeable on an electric car than a combustion engine car because obviously you have a larger fuel tank and you don't notice so much. But on EVs, yep, if you've got strong wind and you're driving into it like we were this morning, you do notice that. So we also had 2 adults, 2 kids and a bit of a load in the car. We had the HVAC running, aircon, we had the radio going, and we were driving in normal mode, so not eco mode or anything. So we were driving as we normally would, and we've arrived with 43 kilometres of range left, so we've easily had enough range. And the low battery warning light, you'll see that on the right hand side in the orange there in the screenshot. That came on with about 60 kilometres range left, which is quite standard for the MGs. So it gives you that bit of leeway after it gives you a reminder. But yeah, 43 kilometres is ample range up your sleeve, so certainly wouldn't be concerned about that. Okay, let's go inside and have a look at this fantastic solar farm.
we've got St Lucia, which is the main campus, and we've got UQ Gatton, which is our ag science and veterinary school, and various other campuses, including Hurston, research facility at Heron Island, and so on. So this facility is a result of the university's commitment to renewables and sustainability. So I work for the university in the sustainability and energy management area. I am a CEC accredited electrician and a University of Queensland graduate, and have experienced, I've worked at different solar farms and for different manufacturers within the utility solar farm sector. So that's me, that's the university, and the reason that we're here is because the university's energy demand is very large, you can tell. Our peak demand, it's probably now a little bit less than that now. It was sitting up around 25 megawatts is our peak demand. So we're now at a point now where we've been able to, through our energy management initiatives, bring that down a little bit. There's still a lot of energy. We can't, it's a 24/7 operation. There's a lot, there are laboratories, there's teaching rooms, there are extensive domestic buildings as well. There's houses and student accommodation, all of that sort of thing as well. So with a gross floor area of over almost 800,000 square metres, it's a lot of buildings and a lot of energy. It's equivalent of a fairly large town, actually. So the university has a record of pursuing the whole renewable energy sector. We've got, over the years, we've implemented a lot of rooftop solar at on various structures and buildings. In 2014 at UQ Gatton, we actually built, we're part of a research project where we actually constructed a small solar farm there, and that is for research purposes. So we have some experience with utility scale solar farms and the various tracking mechanisms for panels, and also having sheep and grazing going on in those areas. So our guys sat down and they said, okay, we're at this point, we've got a fair bit of renewables. How do we get to the ultimate, which is like 100% renewables? How can we achieve that? And the only practical way of doing that was to actually either a power purchase agreement or to actually own and operate our own utility scale solar farm of a suitable size. The guys found, fortuitously, this site had just been developed by the company called Terrain Solar, and Terrain Solar had got this project virtually to almost shovel ready. Now, our desirable site, it needs to have 70 megawatts DC generation. That's the sort of size farm that the energy needed to be able to be 100% renewable offset in the future. And this met that criteria. The site itself is ideal because there's little or no vegetation. There's three farms here, a lot of cropping, so there was very little vegetation and livestock at the top. So there's about a 5 to 10 degree slope overall towards the north. So again, that helps our solar panels with their generation, with their efficiency and the optimisation. We've got actually 2 solar farms here, and they both go out to the grid. We don't have any big substations here. There's no big transformers, etc. We generate the electricity out there at those PCUs, at those containers, at the voltage that the grid requires. So it actually feeds out, this side feeds out to the East Street switch station, Ergon, and it goes on the feeder that goes from Warwick to Allaray. The southern side goes into Warwick and out to Killarney. So again, it's a pretty good setup. Not a lot of extra infrastructure required. Pretty simple sort of, in theory, connection process. We had, as I said to you, we had that experience at Gatton of building our own and operating it rather than just buying it from somebody. So the other thing that gave us was access to the data. So the university has a strong commitment to research, PhDs and so on, and research initiatives. In the back of the building here, we've got a dedicated researchers area, and so we're wanting to foster that, and to do that we need to have access to all the data, which we do because we build it, we own it, and we will operate it when it's 100% operational. And it's cheaper. It makes more sense to run it than to pay somebody for their green power and to pay a premium for that to them. All we're doing is giving them a profit margin, essentially. So, and that's how we've done it. And we talked about, you know, the capital cost of this particular project. You'll see that in the stats later on. It's $125 million. We're a little bit over that, not very much. And the payback on that's quite attractive when we look at what the energy costs are for the university. So, feel free to ask questions as I go through, as the other group did. But I highlighted this issue. Like, for those of you who have been involved in the university sector, you know, it's highly bureaucratic, highly process driven. I don't think I'm saying anything that people don't know. 5 years from the idea to this point in time, which is incredibly quick. Right here. So this was in earlier stage of testing, and I took that photo of our dashboard because that was the first time that we'd actually met the demand of the university. That trace there is the aggregate university energy demand in 5-minute increments.
Across all campuses?
Across all campuses. That 90, there's a high percentage now got smart meters, there's a couple that have missed out, but vast majority gets covered, yeah. And that the block there is our generation that we were testing and that was the first time that we hit that 100%. Now you can see, like we talked about, it was the maximum demand's around 20 to 25 megawatts, so the university could get up to there. You'll see that scale's 20. When we're generating 100%, we're 64. So we're up there somewhere. But you need that because, as you say, you can't. We're not generating at night. There will be times when we can't generate during the day at 100% through inclement weather conditions and so on, or maintenance. There'll be some downtime with maintenance potentially. So, for us to have that goal of being 100% offset of renewables, we need to make sure that we have headroom. And the university might grow too. We might take on another campus. We don't want to be, the university wouldn't want to be constrained and lose that because we didn't have enough headroom. So, yeah, so there's plenty. And then the natural extension of that is energy storage. But as somebody asked that question before, we don't have any plans currently to do energy storage on site here. It's not part of our original approval. However, in the future, who knows? So the site was opened by the previous VC at UQ, and that was done back in 2020. That was when we were actually connected to the grid. So it's been a bit of a push to get to that point. And what we've done here with our sheep, I don't know, if you heard anything about the sheep that we have on site? You'll see out here 150 hectares of land. We've got currently 660 dorpers. And those guys, this is my tie. You don't need to feel it, do you? They just drop this. And we don't have to shear them. They just,
We're just going to go and pick it up.
you find it all over. And in fact, if you look out on the fence, you'll see they actually, it gets itchy. It must be a little bit unpleasant for them. They'll rub against the fence or the piles. They love the piles too. And it actually just pushes it off. So you'll see it around. So you'll see it actually embedded on some of the wires. But we've got 660 here. They came in earlier. They came in at Christmas time last year. And the numbers have gone up and down a little bit, back up again. We've got a facility up the top here, stockyards, where the grazier can come in. We can bring them in here, and he will drench them, health treat them, take some off, whatever, bring some more on, whatever he wants to do. They're not our sheep; they don't belong to us. We have an adjustment agreement with him. Yeah. So, and it's a win-win scenario. You know, like we get the benefits from both the grass being cut, but also from the soil health being maintained and improved by having them grazing here. And he's obviously making good money from, if you've seen the price of sheep and lambs at the moment, he's doing real well. Very well. Yeah. So, but that's part of the investment, isn't it? So, and as a university, we've invested in the infrastructure required to support the sheep here. You'll see that outside there's a funny looking panel array that's different to the rest. That's powering a bore. There's a solar powered bore there that pumps water up to a header tank. and then it gets gravity fed down to various water troughs, drinking troughs that we've got on both sides for the sheep. Plus we've got a dam up here as well that we're sculpted so they can get access to that. So there should never be an issue with water for our sheep on the site. And as we're seeing, there's plenty of feed, lots of feed. And all around the farm, you see this fence that we've got here, the security fence. It's a dog-proof fence, goes down 600 mil into the ground, and that's so that we can stop feral cats, wild dogs, feral dogs. So that the sheep is a big part of what now. In my role here is it's 1/3 overseeing the site to make sure it's generating electricity, meeting its requirements, that we're doing things according to the legislation and the safety standards. The other side is, the other third is actual engagement with our neighbours, with the council, with the general public, with groups like yourselves, helping you come in here and just hosting you, doing that sort of stuff. And then my other third is I look after, oversee the sheep. So, yeah. So the sheep part of it is I liaise with him, I ensure that, again, all the regulations are being met, and just coordinating everything. I live on site up there as well, so I'm kind of like the caretaker as well. So it's an interesting life that I lead in here. It's varied, so I wouldn't have it any other way. So, and I love having groups coming in because this is the only publicly available visitor centre at a solar farm in the whole of Australia.
Really?
So that is just, it's unique. And in fact, I was saying we don't even know if there's another one in the world. We've not heard of another one. It's just something that you don't hear, because generators don't want people coming in. It's a closed shop. They might give you a little bit of information and some glossies, but that's about it. Whereas we're taking the approach, let's invite people in, let's be transparent. You can see exactly what this technology and this whole thing about renewables, what it's about. So it's an educational capacity. This room itself is a multi-purpose teaching room. I've got chairs and tables and things that we can bring in here. We can have classes in here. We've got a meeting room in there that we can host non-profit local groups if they want to come in and have their board meeting or something like that. We've got a car park out the front. We've got toilet facilities. So that's all part of our community engagement. We also, we're an ongoing sponsor of Jumpers and Jazz, the festival here at Warwick. And one of the other things that I'm particularly proud of, the sheep, you can't beat lambs. There's nothing cuter than lambs, I can assure you. We opened the visitor centre here. We had the local pipe band come out and pipe us in, which was really cool. That was really, really awesome. I'll quickly get to this before I go to some of the final stuff. For those of you who are into the numbers, 154 hectares is the total area here. So it's not a big farm. And some of the objections that we received, locking up valuable agricultural land, it's only 154 hectares. There's a lot of other land, and we're promoting the soil health going forward in the future. So 64 megawatts, as I said, 32 megawatts one side, 32 megawatts the other. That equates to the power, to enough energy in a day to power 25,000 homes on average. The average home is about 20 kilowatt hours. That's what an average home in Australia is consuming. We've got, of those tracker rows out there, there's almost 2,500 of those tracker rows. So there's 2,500 of those motors, there's 2,500 of those little panels. It's a numbers game. It's all operated by the sun. We don't put any energy into it. There's 204,549 panels out there. So that's a lot. They're all put out there by hand, obviously, and you'll see, like on that video that's playing out there, the closed loop video, you'll see the construction where the guys and girls are just coming out and putting them out. And there's all the boxes and pallets of them have been laid out. It's all very methodical. It's a numbers game. It's all about just getting sufficient number and generating. The generation occurs, and the easiest way to show the generation is if you look at this cable here. If you look at each of those rows where all the solar panels are mounted on, there's three groups, if you like, in each row that are wired together in series with one of these. And then that goes to a combiner box, which is like here. but it's a box at the end of one of those rows with a big switch on it like this. And it has, out of it, it brings multiple rows into it, and then from that switch, it has two of these bad boys that go to the actual inverter. So you're going from, 10 amps at about a couple of hundred volts. When you get to this, you're looking at 1500 volts DC with a lot higher current. You can see the size of that cable. There's two of those that go from every single combiner box into the inverter. Now in the inverter, there's 3 inverters in each of those containers out there. In the middle, there's actually a transformer, a high voltage transformer. So that steps the voltage up to 33,000 volts AC. That's the actual grid voltage. So what we're actually getting out from every single one of those 16 conversion units, 16 transformers, is 33,000 volts, which then goes through safety switches in there out to the grid. So that grid voltage there is that grid voltage out there. So it's pretty amazing to think, and this is all run underground here. In fact, there's one that runs under the car park all the way to the switch room there. So that's part of the there's a lot of cabling in the ground. What do we say? There's 300 plus kilometres of cables. So that's all of that cabling. Some of it's above ground where all the panels are, but the rest of it is in the ground. So that gives you some of the stats. This one we didn't touch on before. Now, part of our development approval was we agreed to a tree planting along the outside edge. You'll see on that map on the wall there, there's a green border around it. Now, that's 5.3 kilometres around our perimeter along all those different roads, and we've successfully planted 35,000 trees there. That's been done in the last 6 months. Fortunately, our timing's been absolutely spot on because we've had all this beautiful rain. We had excellent winter rain, we've got good rain going into summer, so we've had a high survival rate. I was actually talking to some groups outside. I've got the e-bike outside and I use that. It's a fat bike, so it's got chunky wheels. I use that to actually ride right around the outside, and I had to audit how many of those trees. I didn't count every single one, but I had to look at just doing an overall assessment, and we've got somewhere between 70 and 80% survival rate of those 35,000 trees, which is awesome, really good. Back in 2019, after the first round of construction, late 2019 I think it was, a decision was made by whomever to plant the trees, to start tree planting. They planted down Gleeson and up here Jensen, so that would have been, I don't know, maybe 10,000 trees, something like that, an estimate. We've got, of those that were planted, there's about 10 survivors right down the end, and they're eucalypts. They've actually survived and are doing quite well. Everything else died because we've never got a drop of rain. So, and you can try and water, but it's impossible to water that from outside. We don't have any water infrastructure, underground watering or anything like that. So that's been again, it's been another big win, I think, and it helps with it'll help as the years go by. That'll grow up, and it'll be, as they mature, it'll soften the edges as well. There won't be any shading issues. We've also planted a perimeter up the middle here. You can see there's a sort of a gap that runs all the way up the middle of the solar farm. That's actually McMahon Road. That's a road reserve. So we couldn't build on that, but we planted trees as part of that, and we've had to fence them so that sheep didn't destroy them before they could get started. About the technology, this is the 40-foot container, the skid that's sitting out there. There are 3 inverters. That's an inverter, and then there's one on the other side. And in the middle is the high voltage transformer, and it's just sitting there. It's got a mesh security thing either side of it. The air comes through. It's air cooled. So there's each of those inverters is 1.6 megawatts. So if you're looking for each of those, approximately just under 5 megawatts per station per PCU. And you can see at the top here there's connections and there's antennas up there. we've got our switch gear at both sides, our low voltage and our high voltage switch gear. But again, it's all just craned in. So that's Ingatine, is that brand? There's our, so there's those, from each of those switches on the end of the tube, of the rows, multiple rows feeding into one of those, then each of those in turn feeds into the inverter. You can see that's these at the bottom coming in and fused and going in. So a lot of energy there, a lot for us to obviously be careful with. There's a lot of safety standards that we have to meet, which we do. That's the box I was telling you about, which is the combiner box where they all come into. And there's your two, there are those two lines going out. There's all those multiples coming in of these smaller cables from the actual panels themselves. So it's just a concentration, and you can see that's the protection that you need to wear. We are required to wear this sort of protection when we're switching these things, when there's current, when they're actually live. 78 megawatts DC input, 64 megawatts AC output. That's not, though, a clean, clear efficiency rating, because we've actually got, it's overclocked on the DC side, so just to give us a little bit of headroom. So you can see, I mean, I like this photo because it just shows you how, it's just the numbers, how many there are. You look up a row and it just seems to go forever. And each of those has a motor, the antenna, and a little thin panel to control the shading and to power the turning of each of the rows. Now, people have asked about storms, and we've had some good storms. We've had pea-sized hail, and that's about it. We've had no hail damage as yet. And the way that this site manages that is that we have weather stations that monitor all the conditions on site. These little guys over here, we've got 4 of these, one in each corner of the farm, and all they do is measure the wind speed and the wind direction. And if we find that we've got a wind event that's occurring and it's over a certain kilometres per hour and it's over a certain duration, that will tell the PCU units, and they will actually stow all the panels into the wind to minimise any potential damage automatically, any time of the day or night. Because remembering we've got a battery in that unit which can turn that unit even in the middle of the night, so if we get a storm at night, can still manage it. We've got 3 of these full net stations, and they're located around the farm, and they feed in all the information on all the full meteorological data. So, you know, the sun, the temperature, the barometric pressure, wind, the speed and direction, all of those things. And that AMO, being the actual manager of the grid, has access to all of this information as well. They can actually, we are required to give them access to all of this. So they can at any time look at what's happening with the weather here. They can see what might be happening from the forecast. They can make decisions on grid decisions based on all that data. We are required to give them access to that. This was a panel, right? There's it's tracking like this from the east to the west, right? If there was a strong wind from the west, what do you think would be what would be the best position to stow it in to minimise any potential damage from the wind? What do you think?
60 degrees.
Oh, it's a bit counterintuitive, isn't it? You think you might want to put the thin edge to the wing so that there's less push on it, right? But that's actually the worst position, because what happens is it's actually like a sail, and because that's such a long row, that's such a long distance, you can get harmonics as the wind comes through, and it can actually end up tearing them off. So what we do is we actually tilt it towards the wind, so the wind's hitting it and bounce them off. Because it's rated to take that a lot of force that way. That's not so much the issue, it's the size. It's when it starts doing this that the issues, and we've seen that. There's been plenty of instances where that's occurred. Hail, again, is the same. You don't want it flat. It's most vulnerable at this time of the day when we're getting towards midday, when it's flat. If you've got hail coming out of the sky and it's coming straight down, that's the worst possible position. So you would go, again, 60 degrees one way or the other wouldn't really matter. just to try and minimise that.
So if there was, if they're, like they're nearly flat now,
Yep.
and you saw a storm coming, what sort of lead time have you got to get them up? How long will it take?
We can go through the SCADA, we can just go and we can do a global broadcast and just get them all to move.
Would it be like 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
All good. Well,
Yeah. Yeah. So what happens is, the other thing that I've been asked is like the panels when they're tracking the sun, so they're starting on the east, the sun's coming up, away they go, midday, and then western sun in the afternoon. Now what happens is when that sun goes down, just in the last stages of that, they'll actually be pretty flat because it doesn't shade the panel behind it. It'll be like that around about sort of 5:30, 6 o'clock. Just before it gets dark, they'll then rotate all the way over to the east. So they're actually using the energy from the panel, from the cell to do that. However, there is a battery in there, but we elect to do it just before, while there's just enough sun, just to get it over there so we're not draining the battery. And then that sits there in position over the night, during the night for this eastern sun. And it works beautifully. Works beautifully. And I'll show you that. I got to it at last. For those of you who don't know, we have an EV charging station in Warwick, CBD. It's fully operational. We have a tritium V-fill here, fast charger, and we've got the smaller slow charger, 2 outlets, 3 outlets altogether. 2 different styles on the tritium, 2 different Cheel and the other one there. And it's free.
Yep.
It's free. It's on us. That was part of our community engagement at the very start of this project. So that's been operational since that 2000.
And hats off for the visitor centre.
And the council, the Southern Downs Regional Council, provide that
Kicked in.
that the ground and everything. So it was a part of our MOU that we had with the Southern Downs Regional Council. So and look, there's been a couple of instances. I was expecting some flack. It was actually out of service for a little while because see, that's the problem. The problem when you have something for free, it doesn't have a service level agreement.
Yeah.
So we contact Tritium. And Tritium have been very good. I've got no complaints. They come out and they do it, but they don't have to. There's not a service level agreement on it. So they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get patient. So I apologise for any downtime that may have occurred. This is the other element. Now this is important. I want you to take this away with you as well. I mean, I don't know how many you've got relatives or you know people in the area, but the University of Queensland is providing 2 scholarships per year in the STEM subjects to Year 12 students who have grown up or have studied the Year 12 in the Southern Downs Regional Council area. So that's us going, we've got a facility here, we want to actually foster that with our community as well by offering some access to those university degrees to some people who may not have been able to get there and may not have been able to make it without that support. So, and that's funded not by not by the university, or it's not even funded by the engineering department or whatever. It's actually funded by energy management and sustainability as part of what we do. So we're quite proud of that too. I hosted a visit earlier this year from the 2 winners last year's 2021's scholarships, and they were awesome. Two young guys, one local here and one from Applethorpe. So hopefully we might get some more females, and maybe we can get through as well over the next few years. So that's part of what we do as well. And
well, we're back in Brisbane from our road trip down to Warwick to have a look at the UQ Warwick Solar Farm. And wow, what a difference it makes when you don't have a strong headwind you're driving into. So coming home, we averaged 14.8 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres. Now that was over 5 kilowatt hours less per 100 kilometres than when we went down. So dry roads both ways, except going down we were over 21 kilowatts because of a strong headwind we were going into. Coming home we again had dry roads, but it was a little bit of a tailwind pushing us along, and so under 15 kilowatt hours. So it just goes to show how much difference it does make when you have a wind. Now look, hope you've enjoyed the video. It was a little bit chopping and changing. We arrived to the solar farm and there was lots of people already in there. The presentation was already underway, so we had to wiggle our way through the front. Sound obviously wasn't that good, so apologies for that. We just had a the little handheld mic that you can see, the lapel mic there. I was sort of holding that up in midair. So that was about as good as we could get, but look, I hope you guys found it interesting. It's a great facility down there in Warwick. So look, again, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please click the subscribe button. It really helps us, and also give us the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and leave us some comments or thoughts as well. We try to read all those and reply to those, so we really appreciate all the feedback we get from our viewers. So that's it. Take care, please stay safe, and we'll talk soon.